You're listening to Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY and Political Voices Network. Outside the Box is brought to you by Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. Welcome back to reality. If your life is anything like the life here at the Woodward Ranch, it's been a little quieter. The last week or so, tons of people taking at least part of the week off, if not all of the week off, spend time with family, children, kind of coinciding with the spring break slash Easter break that just came by here. As I mentioned last week, for any of the Orthodox in the audience, our Easter, it's technically was Palm Sunday yesterday, and Easter's going to be this week coming up here. Um, but hopefully you took some time to be with family and enjoy it there. Obviously, we're starting exactly where you think we're starting today, because over the course of the last 4 months, this position has kind of taken a different kind of toll on me lately. And I've kind of highlighted this with you guys. I'm a pretty open book when it comes to putting this show together, being a public figure, and the things I deal with on social media and otherwise. And post ICE murder of Renee Good, there has been a concerted effort by some angry people in the region to say my language goes a bit far, or they don't like the way that I'm talking, or that they don't like the show in general, yada yada yada. And that's fine. Everybody's entitled to have their own opinion. But it is very funny to me when I get harangued for the way that I do the show. I do the show the way I like to do the show, and I get harangued by people saying you need to carry yourself a certain way, you need to do things a certain way. Meanwhile, the president can go on Truth Social, his own social media site, and proceed to tweet, Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the bleeping straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, it's old hat at this point to play the game of imagine if Barack Obama said, Praise be to Allah. But I think we all know exactly what the outcome would be in a world where Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, or any liberal in perpetuity, going forward or backward, ever said praise be to Allah, let alone saying praise be to Allah on Easter. Are you guys old enough to remember when Trans Remembrance Day, which is a set date, it's March 31st every single year, when Trans Remembrance Day just happened to coincide with Easter? The reaction that generated, the weeks long of reaction to when Trans Remembrance Day is from the Republican right. But then the second the sitting president says, Praise be to Allah on Easter, crickets, absolutely crickets in response to what he had to say. And look, I've said it a billion times over. I will never be the speech police on this show. There will be some people out there in the evangelical rights that want Donald Trump impeached as a result of what he said yesterday. That is never going to be me. And by the way, it's not going to be the threatening the war crimes or bragging about blowing up civilian infrastructure. You know, a thing that was roundly condemned by most people in America as Israel was doing it in Gaza for the better part of 2 years during the Biden administration. Forget about that. That's not why they would want him impeached. They want him impeached because of the praise be to Allah comments. These are the kind of days when I wonder what the remedy is for the position that we are in. Fox News took an hour before they decided to cover this, and I'm going to play some audio from it later on in the program. But I think it's important to say here, it took them an hour after the message went out before they were willing to acknowledge that from the sitting president of the United States, this was just sent out there. You know, I can't help but feel a little bit one-upped because I said Alhamdulillah on the show, ironically, on Friday to make a point. And it's like the president was listening. And it was like, I'll show that so and so, watch me do this. And he turns around and says, praise be to Allah on one of the holiest days for Christians. Again, one of my best friends practices Islam. He's been in my life since I was in second grade. I harbor nothing but positive feelings towards people all over the planet of all different religions. No religion bothers me as long as you are not preaching hurt or any type of pain for the average person. As long as it's giving you the peace of mind and kind of the direction that you are looking for, that's all that anybody can hope to achieve in this crazy world that we live in right now. That part of this story is not bothering me. The part of the story that is bothering me is the sitting president is saying, and for the record, I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to be talking about it in the throughout the show today. This is going to be a mostly election-based show, as it is election day tomorrow. But I don't think that this attack is going to happen tomorrow, and that's regardless of what Iran says. Right now, we're at a point where apparently Iran is saying that they reject any claims for a ceasefire, and the Trump administration saying that all hell will break loose by 8 p.m. tomorrow night if their demands are not met. If I were a gambling man, I would predict that the demands will not be met and the violence will not occur, and there will be yet another cessation of attacks. Because again, the longer attacks don't happen, the more the oil markets will begin to calm down, right? The price has shot up 8% on Friday. Everybody is very well aware of how much they are paying for gas, and everybody is well aware that this has come about specifically as a result of one man's decisions. This isn't Congress's fault. This has nothing to do with Joe Biden or the Dems. There is one person who is responsible for the situation that we are in right now in terms of what it costs to get anywhere, what it costs to transport goods, why farmers are struggling to find fertilizer access. All of these are coming about because of the conflict, and assuming the conflict were to continue getting worse, then they're not going to rectify themselves. I say all of this to say, I do not believe that we're going to see the violence that he is promising in this tweet. I genuinely don't. Maybe it happens. I'm saying, what's my gut shot reaction? It's going to be calm. What does stick out to me, though, is that he's going so over the top with it on the holiest of days. Again, like, this is a very hard tightrope for me to walk because I am not a speech police kind of person. But I just know that anytime a Democrat drops an F-bomb, here come the purity police to talk about they're looking for civility in politics today. Here come the civility police to talk about, yeah, Trump says some bad things, but at least the economy's good. It's like there's no line that he can cross that's going to tick people off in a reasonable way, consistent to the stuff that these people claim ticks them off on a regular basis. There's no line that he can cross. There's no idea that he can push too far that's going to take people to where they're like, you know what, I think I've had just about enough of this guy, and it's kind of wild. Praise be to Allah. Needless to say, I'm going to be saying that ironically today and for the foreseeable future. I thought this was sent to me by a friend of mine, and I spent the next 40 minutes fact checking it because I was like, there is no way that this is real. There is a 0% chance that this actually came from the president's account. And here's what actually sticks out to me even more so. And I was intending to talk about this during the Wisconsin election season, but this ties in nicely here as well and will offer me a good segue into the next topic here. There's reporting out right now that on X, on Twitter, there is a bias towards the right-wing accounts, and it shows you in terms of population spheres exactly how much reach some of these right-wing accounts have relative to liberal accounts and, God forbid, leftist accounts, and how far they can go. And there very much is a right-wing bent. And I could have told you that in a post-Elon Musk world. It's all conservatives talking about how Trump is delivering on all of his promises, and a bunch of blue MAGAs telling you that progressive politics will never be the answer. For someone like me, there are no accounts like me that are garnering any kind of reach, at least on that particular social media channel. All day yesterday, my feed was anything but politics. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't use social media for any reason other than talking crap on other media hosts that I think do a poor job at what they do, and staying up to date on breaking news and trying to find things to talk about with you guys for the following day. Outside of that, and cat videos. Outside of that, I really don't use it for anything else. And what's crazy is I got nothing but basketball highlights and painting videos and all of the strangest things, and anything but reaction and updates to what had been going on politically for the last 24 to 48 hours. And that's suspicious to me. We have a Wisconsin Supreme Court race tomorrow that we'll be talking about in the next segment. The president seems to have forgotten to take his meds over the weekend and dropped a praise be to Allah, some F-bombs, and a couple of other cusses in regards to doing war crimes, into just openly admitting to doing war crimes. Not a shock from the administration that was murdering people off the coast of Venezuela, but to be so brazen about this is pretty jarring. By the way, fret not, CNN did provide him cover by saying that these bridges and power plants are also used by terrorist organizations, so don't worry, they will not be viewed as war crimes after he does it. Trust me, we'll be good. But it was completely shut down. There was no effort to actually push politics into my feed for 24 hours. I had to actively seek it out. If my friend did not send me a copy of the tweet yesterday, I would not have known that it happened until early this morning when news networks were talking about it. And this goes to show you, from a media censorship standpoint, you can't trust legacy media, and I totally get that. But at the same time, that's how quickly our social feeds can now be manipulated. I told you I do the show on TikTok Live now, and I made a joke. I can't even say what the joke was, but it was in jest about me doing something to myself because I was so frustrated with the state of politics in the moment. And I immediately got shut down for 10 minutes. So you've got legacy media straight up withholding evidence from you or withholding information from you when you're trying to be informed and have a reasonable opinion on some matter of foreign policy or domestic that you would like to be able to speak knowledgeably about. Then you go on social media and find out that there is no effort to try and to push this information in front of you, information that by and large would generate a lot of clicks and a lot of interest, which is supposed to be what those websites are all about. But apparently not when it shows that grandpa maybe forgot to take his medicine yesterday before getting on the TikTok. Grandpa, of course, being Donald Trump. Praise be to Allah, said the sitting president of the United States. If you're not mad about it, that's fine. But just remember that I'm not going to be taking you seriously the next time something trans happens on your holy day, because we know that you're only posturing when it's politically expedient, but not necessarily when you're trying to remain consistent. Cynthia says, said it on Easter after all those fake Christians were in the White House praying over him last week. Nah, I mean, like, it's the hypocrisy knows no bounds, that's for sure. All right, Brian, you sent me a bunch here. What are we doing here? So you warn of a war crime, the F word, an 8-year-old rant, praise be to Allah, a priceless moment from the president. It's uncanny what people were so unwilling to accept from a Democratic Party. And again, my memory knows no bounds. I will remember all of this. There is no doubt in my mind that when you inevitably are going to try and position this as some kind of negative, some kind of, oh my God, can you believe the Democrat wore this color suit to go and do a thing? Nobody's going to take you seriously on this show, and I hope you understand that. David says, regarding Trump, you think the wheels have come off? Is he mentally confident to guide this country? I mean, he's not going anywhere. I'm not even going to bother wasting FCC airwaves with that kind of conversation. He's not doing anything. He's not going anywhere. Congress isn't all of a sudden going to snap out of it and do the right thing. Congress has barely made a comment in relation to the tweet that went out there. All you can do is just remain consistent. I am not calling for him to be impeached or removed or anything like that. I think we're going to have to buck up, Buttercup, and tough this out for another 2.5 years because Congress isn't going to do anything, and there's never going to be the required number of votes in the Senate in order to remove him. So there might be some show trials. There might be the House pretending to try and do something, but by and large, there's not going to be any effort to actually remove this man. Short of him passing away, he is going to be there until January of 2029. So you're going to have to get that out of your head. But the fact is that at least Joe Biden was sundowning. Like Donald Trump is sundowning, but not, in my opinion, to the same extent. You don't have the Roomba effects of Joe Biden that you have on Donald Trump. His demeanor is shaky, but in an entirely different way. But I just don't see the people that are scared to do or say something about it doing or saying something about it. But fret not. I'm getting some big time season 5 Breaking Bad vibes off of Donald Trump right now. We're at the point where he's going to try and act like he still has the sway that he does in between the war, in between the cost of living. He's lost 60 points with voters under 29 over the course of the last year and a half. The desire to be associated with Trump is waning. Unfortunately, it looks like our economy is going to be dragged into the toilet in the name of clinging to whatever pillars of power he still has access to here. We've had somebody waiting on hold for a minute. I welcome anyone else's call as well. 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Good morning, Ben. I have had to start listening or watching those little Lego things about Iran. They're funny as heck. But did you read about what Oracle did? They've made massive profits, and they fired 30,000 people via an email.
Oh, yeah, we talked about it on Friday. I don't remember the specifics anymore. Oh, no worries, but it was something like $16.1 billion in net revenue. I actually did the math, Cynthia. Instead of firing 30,000 people, they could have given those 30,000 people all a $270,000 raise and still made $8 billion in net income. And it's but instead they lay them off after getting a tax cut. It's remarkable.
It's and now they've hired a former security firm to protect the executives. They've all gone into hiding.
Yeah.
I don't care.
yeah, you and me both. I appreciate the call though, Cynthia. I think you're spot on with that. I'm right there with you. Lord knows that you don't need to talk me into talking trash on a major corporation taking advantage of our economy. We got a text here. What's this say? Are you upset that he was mocking Islam or threatening to join their religion? I'm upset with the war crimes. I'm upset with the threatening to blow up civilian infrastructure, much like I was upset with the Biden administration providing the weapons and funding to blow up civilian infrastructure in Gaza. I'm upset that there is no anti-war party available for us to vote for. It's a matter of voting for, do you want to arm and fund a genocide while people pretend to feel bad about it, or do you want to arm and fund a complete massacre of a population while a bunch of trained SEALs sit there and clap for it? And that's basically the two things that we're voting between right now. The praise be to Allah, I think, is more frustrating to me just from a perspective of if a Republican or if a Democrat said it, you guys would be, Republicans, I should say, would probably not shut up about it for the next 10 years, a la basket of deplorables or whatever the situation may be. But this is going to be a story that's out of the news by 8 p.m. tonight in Trump world. I think that's probably the most frustrating part about all of it. You went on to say his statements are so confusing, no one knows what he's saying, including himself. Right. Again, he's sundowning. It's not as evident as Joe Biden, but the dude is sundowning. He's just a moron. It's one or the other, but the guy's stupid. He shouldn't be taken seriously, and unfortunately, he has one of the most powerful positions on the planet, but he's a moron sitting in one of the most powerful seats on the planet, I guess is where the bulk of my frustration stems from. And in the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to be jumping into his asinine defense budget and just how much he wants to cut out of American social spending in the name of creating a $1.5 trillion defense budget. That, of course, is going to be coming up in the 10 o'clock hour. I do want to switch gears here into the world of Wisconsin. There is an election day tomorrow. Obviously, get out there and vote. I'll be doing so shortly after the show wraps up tomorrow afternoon. We're going to go over it one more time, just the where you can go, policies like that. But most importantly, what sticks out to me is the fact that this the major race of this election day, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, feels as though it's already set in stone. There really hasn't been a lot of discourse surrounding it, and it sticks out to me online. It sticks out to me within the Wisconsin Democrats and the Wisconsin GOP, and it sticks out to me in terms of marketing. We're going to jump into all of that on the other side of the break, plus your calls and texts, 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. We'll be back outside the box, WHBY. Jerry sent me a text tied into what Cynthia was or an email rather, tied into what Cynthia was talking about there. Cynthia was mentioning Oracle after having received a massive tax cut, laying off 30% of their workforce, people waking up, finding out that they had been laid off essentially via email by the time, according to firsthand accounting, by the time they finished reading the email, they could no longer access their work IDs or anything like that. They had essentially been locked out of the system that quickly after a record breaking profit year and after a lot of these companies' expenses had been cut by receiving a reduction in their tax bill. What Jerry sent me through Robert Reich, which he doesn't have his title on there, but I believe he was Clinton's labor secretary back in the 90s. Essentially saying Amazon, which saved $4 billion in taxes under Trump's big ugly bill, has cut 30,000 jobs since last October. Verizon, which saved $2 billion, plans to cut 15,000 jobs this year. Meta, which saved $3 billion, plans to lay off 20% or more of its workforce. We've been talking about a handful of these companies. He goes on to say trickle-down economics is a cruel joke. And again, you'd be hard-pressed to convince me that it's a beneficial system because we're watching the coffers dry up. There's not as much revenue coming in. We're talking about funneling that money into a $1.5 trillion defense budget, and we're not seeing the jobs numbers increase, and more importantly, we're not seeing the wages increase. Numbers were always going up in the Biden era. My issue was never with Joe Biden's job creation. My issue was with the fact that jobs were not paying enough commensurate to how quickly costs had gone up. We did a segment last week highlighting that when you look at the experts, they will tell you that inflation has gone up roughly 25 to 29%. Meanwhile, we were going on a category by category basis. We were seeing increases of 45, 50, and all the way maxing up with eggs and a handful of other different products at 77 and 79% since 2019. So the cost of all these goods is shooting through the roof. The salaries are not keeping up, and we were told, incorrectly so, I could have told you that before anything happened, but we were told cutting taxes for these people would be a net positive, but there's really no evidence to back up those claims, if you ask me. So I appreciate the information there. I'm not surprised that it's taking the path that it is, and I'm going to tangent here so hard. I think the most frustrating part about all of this is that with a competent Democratic Party, with an opposition party that actually intended to oppose and push back against war crimes and not fund the military at record amounts and ICE at record amounts, and was trying to find ways to placate the Republican right as opposed to doing anything that could be construed as leftist. This entire administration is ripe for the picking. Like, this is not a particularly difficult party to beat. And 2026 is going to be ugly for Republicans. There's no way of circumventing that reality. But Democrats can absolutely mess up 2028, and they can mess it up very easily. And I think that's the most frustrating part, is this guy is so bad. Like, if you really think about it, other than something trans, there really hasn't been much movement since January of 25 in a positive direction. It's all been negative. Prices are still more affordable. We now have a president in office saying not only is he not considering trying to bring price down for housing and other different commodities, he's saying that it is impossible for the federal government to do anything about it, while asking for a $1.5 trillion defense budget. I read an Axios article saying that he is hitching his 2026 wagon to the idea of convincing whoever's left in the cult that a never-ending defense budget is necessary to make sure that they feel safe, and hoping to garner some attention and support from that perspective, from the perspective that he's going to make a safer environment for all of us as we are watching our American brothers and sisters get murdered in the street. The entire world's economy kind of turn against us in a pretty frustrating way, whether it be from tariffs, our actions in the Middle East, or just the general disposition of the sitting president. It feels beatable, I guess is my point. It feels so beatable. And I don't know that they're going to be able to find a way to do it. We'll see what happens. But, like, this is why we need third-party conversations. And I will be speaking at a third-party event. And I'll have more on that as the information makes itself available. But I at least want to bring up that there is a third party in Northeast Wisconsin that asked me to come and speak a little bit at it. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be doing so, because if Democrats don't mean business, well, then it's time to start planning otherwise. What do we have here? Jaramani says, I saw an article that Amazon, FedEx, and UPS are planning to join USPS and putting a temporary surcharge on shipping to cover fuel costs. I don't really get them doing that when gas prices were high when Biden was in office. No, exactly. I said the same thing when they made the announcement. It feels very obviously political, and more importantly, those businesses know. And until we wake up from this, please understand that this is how businesses are going to react in perpetuity. As long as we as Americans are willing to engage in whataboutism, as long as we are willing to blame the other party, as long as Democrats are willing to pretend, I'm not saying Jaramani did this, as long as Democrats are willing to pretend that prices are only high because of Donald Trump's tariffs, as long as MAGA is willing to pretend that, yeah, high prices are bad, but the Dems, as long as we are willing to play those games, these companies are going to continue artificially raising our rates. It's why everybody's like, I'm a one-issue voter. What's your issue? Something about the transits. I'm a one-issue voter. What's your issue? Something about abortion. Okay, I'm a one-issue voter. Whoever's intending to crack down on corporate greed and stop the obvious fleecing of the American people gets my vote. I don't care about your stance on transgender athletes in sports. I do not care about your stance on cussing. I don't care about your stance on anything. Tax the effing rich, and then we can talk about anything else you want to talk about on the other side of that. That is the way that I am viewing politics until further notice, because whether it's what's Jerry sending me in regards to layoffs, whether it's the audio that I play for you guys about earnings calls, bragging about record profits on a quarterly basis, whatever it is, we clearly are being taken advantage of. You can say it's because we're printing money. You can say it's because there's a lack of competition. You can say it's because of Mexicans. Whatever your rationale is, it always ends with these companies are taking advantage of us. And whichever party wants to run on addressing that is going to win in a landslide. The MAGA movement has made it clear that their way of describing it is going to be, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. I don't know what you guys want us to do. Yeah, it seems like a lot of other countries have figured this out, but we're not going to do it. So vote for somebody else. That's how you're going to win elections going forward. I'll tell you that right now. See, we have Anna and Larry in the YouTube chat, a couple of texts, but we also have a call. We'll do that first. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Morning, Ben. It's Brian. Hey. I found something that helps me a lot. I'm going to give you a number, 202-224-3121.
Yeah.
That's the switchboard in Washington, and you can call and leave messages for your senators or your House representatives. But I find great joy calling Tammy Baldwin and Ron Johnson and raising holy heck. So 1.5 trillion versus our social safety programs, cutting 10 regional Forest Service offices. The one in Milwaukee takes care of the boundary waters and the Great Lakes shoreline. Leave them nasty grams. It feels so much better when you hang up the phone. So
if nothing else, it's a little bit of catharsis there. I can get behind that. Thank you for calling, Brian. Praise be to Allah. What's up?
One more thing.
What's up?
One more thing. Hey, free beer from Minocqua Brewing when Trump passes away. That is edgy.
Yeah, right. Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I'm catching strays from that tweet, so I can feel that. I appreciate the call, Brian. Yeah, there's a lot of people that feel a certain way about this now. And Cynthia's talking about the 3.5 cost on merchants to cover fuel costs coming from Amazon. God forbid Jeff pay a little bit. Oh, and Kathleen's wishing me a happy Easter this Sunday. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Okay, So with all that, now that we're thoroughly off topic here entirely, let's friendly reminder here. myvote.wisconsin.gov. myvote.wisconsin.gov is an appropriate website for you to be searching over the course of the next 24 hours. It has all the available information on there. More on that in a second. We've got another call come in. We'll see what we got. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Hey, Ben, can I go back to your segment before the break?
Yeah, go for it. What's up?
Well, you talked about how the moron who's not in charge of the White House talked about, praise to LA or whatever the heck he said. And if Biden would have said that, they would have thought he was definitely lost his marbles.
100%.
And if Obama would have said that, they would have been still questioning his birthright citizenship.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, they're doing that anyway. So thanks for the call, Cindy. I mean, spot the lie. But yeah, no, she's absolutely right. And I mean, that's why I kind of moved on, because there's really nothing more I could say about it other than that. I am not offended by it, but I know a lot of the people that are pretending they aren't offended by it. It's why it's going to become my new greeting going forward for people. Is I'm just going to start saying praise be to Allah randomly when it doesn't make sense, until inevitably someone gets mad. You know what's funny is I did a segment last week. We're never going to get to mywisconsin.gov. I did a segment last week where I was talking about Christian Zionism and how Pete Hegseth identifies as a Christian Zionist. And there are people out there who believe that in order for their savior to return, that there needs to be mass violence and death in the Middle East, that Israel and Palestine and Iran and Saudi Arabia and all these guys have to get involved, and once enough people have died, their savior will return. And as I've stated before, I'll never tell anybody how to practice religion, but if your religion requires a lot of violence to take place, well, then I don't think you're doing religion the right way. And I inevitably, almost immediately, got a call from somebody off the air who wanted to talk about how Islam's way more radical than Christian Zionism and blah, 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 blah. Splitting hairs here when we're talking about violence in the name of a belief, of faith. And those same kind of mentalities who are so willing to throw Islam and Muslims and people in the Middle East under the bus all of a sudden are significantly more quiet in this outcome here, which I think is probably a cause for concern at the very least. But what am I supposed to say? Anyway, Election Day tomorrow. The big one, of course, being the Supreme Court justice, but there are so many races available that I essentially could spend the better part of the next hour and 15 minutes just going in this zip code. This election is here's the list of elections. In this zip code, here's the list of elections. I have the one for my zip code available in front of me right now, and I have of course, the Supreme Court case, the Court of Appeals Judge District 2, Winnebago County Supervisor District 3, Municipal Judge Court of Menasha and Neenah, Menasha Joint District School Board member, and of course, a referendum for Menasha School District Joint School District operation expenses. Every single one of you has the capacity to do this. And in case you are unfamiliar with how it works, you don't even need to go to myvote.wisconsin.gov. Type in, what can I vote on in the Wisconsin primary tomorrow, or election tomorrow? And the myvote.wisconsin.gov website will be the first thing that pops up. Click on that link and fill in some basic info. It's going to ask for your address, and that's it. All right? Just your address, punch that in, and it's going to tell you everything that you need to know. Then I would suggest doing this now if you haven't already voted. Some of them, you're only going to have one person to vote for. Some of them will have a handful of people that you'll be able to vote for. Do the research today. And then go in tomorrow understanding who you're going to vote for, what should be on your ballot, and what you're going to do. And never forget, remember that ID. We are rife with election fraud in this country, so you're not going to want to forget that ID that's already required by Wisconsin law. Bring your ID to the polling place, go informed, and then get out of there pretty quickly. I'm not anticipating, we've kind of been talking about it on and off throughout the last 2 weeks. We are hundreds of thousands of votes behind in terms of the early voting period relative to the 2025 Supreme Court race. Not surprised, given the stakes as well as the investment coming from both parties last time relative to this time. But there's a lot of other factors here as well. And I got to say, from a strategic standpoint, it almost feels like the Wisconsin GOP's game plan is everybody shut up about the election. I think if we don't talk about it, that might be our best move. Because again, in the lead up last year, and maybe this could be because the Nazi salute and moron invested $100 million in our Supreme Court race. So maybe he was putting his thumb on the scale a little bit. But my Twitter feed in 2025 would not shut up about the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I don't see anybody talking about it in social circles. I actually see more people complaining about Governor Evers' 400-year line item veto on property taxes, and then other people talking about how that's being misrepresented, yada, 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 so on and so forth. I am seeing infinitely more posting about that than I am about a Supreme Court race coming up tomorrow, which is kind of shocking to me. But I think it says something more about the state of Wisconsin politics today. And I'm even questioning, and this is how we're going to end the hour. I do have to squeeze one more break in here, though. But I am questioning, are we still a swing state in terms of statewide elections? I realize Trump just won in 2024, but I think he has a unique capacity to captivate people that want to vote for him. I am asking, in general, are we still a swing state on statewide elections? I think we will still reflect a hopefully fairly 50-50 state legislature going forward. But in terms of when the whole population votes, are we still purple? Your thoughts. Anna says, overturning Citizens United and taxing the heck out of the rich is how we move forward on all other social issues. The horse has to come before the cart. Larry says, how tax the rich works. We pay the inflation to tax the rich. The rich pay 92% government tax. That's how it was done in the 50s. Old Lib says, I love that name. If Tom Tiffany is the next governor, he will need to deal with the cuts to health care, no child care, and all the federal social program cuts. Be careful what you ask for. And Herb out in Nina says, I went and voted every day of early voting. The poll workers knew me on site. Kidding, there was no line when I did officially vote. I have been voting every day, but it's only because we don't have, election fraud is rampant in this country. So I've been taking advantage of it. I've actually voted in every election available. There's a bunch of states. I'm going to end up, ICE is going to be knocking at my door here. We're going to go to break and we'll finish this topic on the other side. You're listening to Outside the Box here on WHBY.
Estate planning seminar. They're held monthly and designed to give you clarity, not pressure. Sign up at hooperlawoffice.com. Hooper Law Office. Locations in Appleton, Oshkosh, and Green Bay, or virtually. Everyone has a legacy. Let's protect it together.
We've got tax tips at 6:20 a.m. plus 12:20 and 4:20 p.m. right here on WHBY. Those are brought to you by Hailing and Associates. Check out hailingandassociates.com. All right, we've returned outside the box. Ben Cominos, WHBY. I have a friend of mine saying, "Yeah, maybe the president will crap on Greek Easter." Praise Allah with a question mark. I'm telling you, it's entered my vernacular, and I don't see any time soon that it's leaving. I want to say it enough that somebody inevitably emails and is like, "Why does the guy keep saying praise be to Allah on his show?" Like, I want to be the praise Allah show at this point because that's how little I actually respect what this president is doing at this point. And again, I think it's going to reverberate across a number of different elections here in the foreseeable future. I think that you are going to see the impacts of Donald Trump's presidency and how much it has impacted Wisconsin tomorrow. I don't want to attach any type of speculation, at least not yet, to what I think is going to happen tomorrow, because I could end up with egg on my face. But there's a chance that we're going to see a closer to 15-point spread in a Wisconsin statewide election, which, if you are listening to me and you are not from the state, that is a remarkable statistic. The Supreme Court has reflected that in the last couple of elections, and that could be as a result of frustration with the Wisconsin GOP. But you add on top of that just a layer of deflation coming from the Republican right, because much like I stated during the Biden years, I do genuinely believe there are quite a few MAGA supporters out there that when they vote for Donald Trump, they mean the things they say. They thought the Bidenomics wasn't working and they wanted to take a shot with what Trump was offering. Yeah, there's a contingency of them that just really don't like Mexicans. But by and large, I have seen specifically the conflict with Iran, but a handful of different parts of the conversation really weighing on the people that voted for Trump. And I think you're going to see that born into reality tomorrow on the statewide part of the election. And maybe even to a certain extent, if you are following along closely enough, down partisan lines for some of the more local representation as well. Get out there, get your voices heard, as Jarmani says on the YouTube line. Vote early, vote often. Get out there and get your voice in the game. One step at a time here is how we're going to undo a lot of this mess, and this mess is exactly what you guys think it is. We have to squeeze one more break in here, but on the other side, we're going to jump into this conversation about defense spending. Some of you guys already know the path that I am going to go with this, but at its current iteration, with the $1 trillion defense budget that we're already doing, America accounts for 40% of all defense spending, while we're the only industrialized country that has people going broke from medical debt or going into lifelong debt as a result of having the audacity to educate themselves. There is absolutely no way that this is going to garner support from the majority of the American people. Will the elected officials in office have the guts in order to stand up to it, or do they capitulate in the name of patriotism or whatever BS reason they're going to give us? We're going to jump into that on the other side of the news. If you can't stick around, download the WHBY app. Just search WHBY in Google Play, the App Store. We also are streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Come follow along for that ride as well if you haven't been already. And we'll be back in just a little bit. You're listening to Outside the Box here on WHBY. All right, and we're back. Ben Cominos, Outside the Box, WHBY, kicking off Political Voices Network, Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. There we go. I got it. We have so much that we have to get into here still today, and I just keep going off on tangents. I love the new interaction that I'm getting with so many people. I just received a message during the break there just saying he's from one listener with an anonymous name. So glad I found this show. Thanks, Ben, which I'm absolutely thrilled that people feel that way about it. Really loving this new approach here that I have. Got a ring light, got a tripod, I got my phone set up here. I got a second camera. I've got a lot of things going and all these different metrics in order to take in your guys' input as well while still trying to deliver the news of the day. Very fun, very distracting at the same time, but definitely a different approach to this show than what we've been doing for most of its existence. And I gotta say, I'm liking it. As Anna say, he's so fancy now. Yeah, I am. I was kind of implying that. But I do have to laugh. I also have things up on Facebook as we speak. I'm generating a little bit of content there as well outside of the show. And I was showing, I released a chart showing what an average week of traffic on the Strait of Hormuz prior to the wheels falling off at the beginning of March, and then shows some of the weeks after that, and then it shows some of the traffic returning, but it's quite literally not 1/20th of what it used to be. And then when you look at right-wing sources, they tell you, as traffic in the Strait of Hormuz reaches new high since the conflict started, people are wondering if tensions are beginning to de-escalate. Go on my Facebook, my Instagram, or my TikTok page and go check out the chart. It would be highly recommended that you look at how different the traffic was prior to this than where it is today and what is being championed as a win in the Strait of Hormuz versus being serious. And the best part is you read the comments and it's finding Trump voters, because one guy, Wayne, simply says, "Why are you on my feed?" To which I responded to him, "Just lucky, I guess. Praise be to Allah." So I'm having fun with it. You guys should check it out. If you can't get enough of the show, I'm starting to become much more active on socials, trying to keep a little bit of the conversation rolling throughout the day there to the best of my ability. And with that, I think it's time for the big story of the day. And by the big story of the day, I mean the story that dropped moments after I got off the air on Friday, as it always does happen, it seems to be. We are looking at the potential for the largest increase in defense spending since World War II. 40% increase, 44 to be exact, over 40% increase in our defense spending year over year. Before I go any further into this, I would like to say that this show on Friday took a bit of a dark turn in the 10 o'clock hour, because at that time period, we found out that an F-15 jet had been shot down over Iranian airspace, and that while one of the people in the aircraft had been rescued, we didn't know what was going to happen for the other. And there was essentially a mad dash between both the people of Iran as well as the American military in an effort to find that other pilot. Or I should say, we don't know if it was the pilot or the navigator, to find the other person that was in that aircraft before Iran did. I am happy to report that America was able to get it done. They were the ones that were able to find this person, get him out of enemy territory, and we're kind of back to business as usual at this point. Could have taken a much darker turn. I'm not going to speculate as to what would have happened had this individual been found, but at the very least, there would have been propaganda videos that were created using that soldier, and moreover, any other country worth their salt would be able to use this moment in an effort to gin up even more tensions, more frustration, and more pressure on a Trump administration, because anybody that has even, and I realize Iran has essentially no access to the internet at this point, but I'm not willing to believe that they don't have the capacity to communicate with the outside world still. Anybody with a pulse can understand that 70% of the American population is against what they are seeing take place in Iran right now. They don't see any need for it. They did not feel threatened by it. A lot of the people parroting the Trump talking points of this has been a 47-year conflict are not being taken seriously because we had an entire election not very long ago where not a single person other than Nikki Haley talked about Iran in any kind of meaningful fashion. And Nikki Haley was demonized for talking about Iran the way that she was, because allegedly the MAGA movement was based in the concept of being anti-war. We are now seeing the Trump administration decide that his best move, his best way to circumvent the anger and animosity coming from his own voters towards this decision is to double down on it. Now, it's an interesting strategy because, again, the Democratic objective is to ignore it. And I have some thoughts on that and how it relates to the media, but more on that in a second. His plan is to double down on it. Instead of doing a mea culpa, instead of trying to find a very easy off-ramp, something that it seems like the leaders of Iran aren't even necessarily willing to offer at this point. Instead of trying to take that route, he has decided, I am going to create an emergency that has a certain percentage of the population thinking that we have to just spend all of our money on defense spending. A $1.5 trillion defense budget. For the record, under Biden, it increased by about $120 billion over the course of 4 years. Then it went up close to $200 billion in 1 year, and now another $500 billion this time around. Pretty interesting conversation. Really stop and think about it. We're looking at a $500 billion increase in the cost of defense spending. We're looking at a $200 billion cash infusion to help us get to the end of the year, all while the president is saying we're a week or two away from this conflict ending. Something about this conversation doesn't smell right if you're paying attention. Now, as per More Perfect Union, I would like to highlight what, according to them, they see as what will be cut by this administration. I have seen a lot of reporting about this. Some of these lists are longer than others. They're not all consistent. But there are a handful of things that I was able to confirm over the course of the weekend that appear in everybody's accounting of where funds are going to get cut. The EPA budget is going to get cut in half, which, like, realistically, what has the environment ever done for us? 10 points. That's a joke. That was too dry for me, even. That was a joke. 10.7 billion for housing. I haven't heard anybody complaining about housing costs, so I don't see any reason to continue having government programs for that. It's not like boomers directly benefited from that or something. 8.5 billion for K through 12 programs. Looks like we're going to have to increase state funds here in Wisconsin because we can't trust the federal government anymore. 15 billion for clean energy. I mean, yeah, guys, we got to drop this clean energy thing. I want my energy coming from a thing that can artificially be inflated in price the moment there's any hiccup in the world economy. The fact that you guys don't want that makes me wonder if you're not secretly the terrorist. Praise be to Allah. Cut $2.5 billion for clean drinking water. Who drinks water anyway? Eliminate $1.6 billion for youth job training. Young people don't want to work. I don't see any reason to train them anyway. $3.5 billion from the Labor Department. Eliminate $395 million for senior employment. Seems like the appropriate time to do that, as we are seeing seniors enter the workforce at the same rate they were during the Great Depression. Don't see any reason to facilitate that movement in any way. Eliminate $775 million in food assistance grants. Guess we didn't cut SNAP enough. Eliminate the National Endowment for Democracy. Trump's going to end that anyway. Cut $5 billion from the NIH. Eliminate low-income home energy assistance programs. That's lie heap. For those of you that were not listening on Friday, we were doing a conversation about energy costs and what lends itself to escalating energy costs. And I talked a little bit about my own experience coming from a deregulated state and what being able to choose your energy supplier does for you, both in a positive as well as a negative light. It turns out not only are these price increases Democrats' fault, but we're also going to cut any of the programs that assist the people that are struggling to pay for these ever-inflating energy costs here. Again, also probably the Democrats' fault. All of this is in the name of funding defense, a defense program that already accounts for almost half of all defense spending on the planet. Lil Marco went on TV. If it wasn't at the beginning of last week, it was 10 days ago, and said maybe if Iran spent less money on defense and more money on social programs, they might be willing to, or they might be able to build a community, build a society that might be more intertwined into the world markets of today. I went and looked to see how much Iran spends because I knew it wasn't going to be what America spends, right? But also, I mean, we were able to go into hostile territory at a time when everyone on the enemy's in the enemy's armed forces were looking for a pilot, and we were able to find him and get him out of there before things went awry, which is definitely an impressive feat. A more impressive feat would not be not starting pointless wars of choice because Benjamin Netanyahu told you to do so. That would be probably the best path forward to take here, but given the fact that we have a president who isn't particularly good at the job, this is a good second option, is having an armed forces competent enough to be able to go in there and achieve the desired outcomes there. Iran's not even on the list of the top 15 countries in terms of defense spending as per 2024. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I also know that it can't be too far off. And given the fact that we're talking about at most tens of billions of dollars, while we are looking at hundreds of billions, soon to be trillions of dollars in defense spending, I think Lil Marco and the DEI defense secretary probably need to pipe down about what Iran is dumping into their defense spending relative to what they are trying to do to people in this country. How in any world is this America first? In any definition of the word, how is this America first? I am seeing a country that is willing to sell its future down the river. Again, it seems like a company that knows it's about to go out of business and it's trying to sell anything it has at 10 cents on the dollar while it's going broke. Because you have the audacity to suggest this in an election year with the future of the House and Senate. 6 months ago, the idea of the Democrats winning the Senate is a pipe dream. Now all these stupid gambling sites have it at 50-50, if not a slight edge for Democrats, all because of the ineptitude of the Trump administration. To have the audacity to suggest this in an election year. I remember in 2024 when I used to say to you guys that it feels like the Democrats are intentionally trying to lose this election based on the candidates they forced forward, the policy that they were running on, the actions that they were engaging in. The fact that there was an entire uncommitted movement that it seems like they were more than happy to ignore. I said it felt like they were intentionally trying to lose. Anything that this administration has done in the last year absolutely blows anything I saw the Democratic Party do out of the water. And it's funny because this goes to show you the way the Democrats carried themselves in an election year mirrors the way that their media covers their politicians, and the way the Republican administration is carrying itself mirrors what Fox and conservative media does. Case in point, I've always stated fake news is a real term. Donald Trump, as per usual, typically has his finger on the pulse. He just bastardizes whatever he's saying in a way that he gets people that understands what he means, but he doesn't do it in the right way. In Trump world, fake news is anything that highlights his administration in a bad light. In reality, Fox News had to pay almost $1 billion in restitution for lying about an election outcome, right? They wouldn't accept that Donald Trump lost. They went along with the lie. It's 2026. I still have people messaging me that the 2020 election was stolen only by the dumbest people that are out there, of course. The conservative media's effort to obfuscate lies is to lean into them, to be like, oh, yeah, that happened, or flat out say it didn't happen, even when there's video evidence to the contrary. The Democratic effort, because Democratic fake news is real. The Democrats' approach, though, is to act like it's not happening at all. They won't even acknowledge it. Joe Biden obviously slipping. The Bidenomics is working claim, which for those of you with goldfish memories, that was the conventional wisdom all the way up until we finally beat Medicare on debate night. They do not talk about it. They will not bring it up. And then after the fact, they act like they were talking about it all the time. The Trump administration's effort to gloss over the fact that he ran as the anti-war president while being more violent than most presidents in recent history is to double down on it, is to say, actually, Iran is such a threat that we have to increase our record-setting defense spending by 44% more in order to combat whatever violence is coming out of Iran. Violence that no one was worried about 4 months ago. Much like how the Democrats' approach in 2024 was to pretend like the Israel-Palestine conversation wasn't a real one or was something that was held by a very small minority of voters. Now they can't stop blaming the voters of Dearborn, Michigan for ushering in Trump. Meanwhile, the voters of Dearborn, Michigan let everyone know during the primaries that they were upset with things. You were watching the administration take the same approach to obfuscating reality that their networks do. And I would love, I mean, I'm a psych major. I'm by no reason means an expert. I might have to reach out to Erin, the intern down there getting her PhD in Milwaukee. The psychology behind the fact that Republican voters will probably just go along with a lie and liberal voters will go along for a lie as long as you just don't thrust it in their face all the time. It's uncanny and it's unbelievable, but most importantly, this defense spending budget is absolutely disgusting. The fact that they even feel comfortable proposing this is pretty gross, let alone the fact that we do not even know if it's actually going to fail. How many blue dog liberals, as they like to refer to themselves, are going to find their patriotism streak? How many John Fettermans and Alyssa Slotkins out there are all of a sudden going to find the necessity for making sure that we do have the deadliest force on this planet? Trying to win over those 17 Liz Cheney Democrat voters as opposed to trying to do anything to build the social safety net that so many people want to see. It lends itself to the first hour of conversation that we had. A country with a real opposition party, with a party who's actually interested in addressing the shortcomings in this country, would mop the floor with MAGA right now. Wouldn't have even lost to MAGA, to be perfectly honest. I'd love to see the alternate reality where blue MAGA got out of the way and just let Bernie win in 2016. Pretty sure MAGA would be put to bed at this point. We'd all be moving on, complaining about something else. Almost dropped a different word there. Unfortunately, I don't think we have that opposition party, and it's a hard pill to swallow. It's very difficult to stomach, but I think it's a reality that a lot of us struggle with nevertheless. We got a lot of messages piling up in the YouTube chat that I will get to. And Lenny asking, are Palestinians considered Gentiles? I honestly don't know. I have no idea. I don't want to speak. I can check it out maybe during the break, but I got a lot of things I got to do. Joe says it's fortunate that they did find the pilot, but this fails under the comms secretary, communications secretary, where they put the information out and the CAA was sending out false info to mislead them. That's none of our business. Is knowledge their business? And if that happens again, it only works once. That's a fair assessment. And Joe served and oftentimes provides that kind of insight, which I definitely appreciate you sharing that there, Joe. I'm a hard pass on this, guys. I'm a hard pass, and I don't understand. I don't know what's going on in right-wing circles that I don't necessarily run with, that they think that this is a workable strategy. Like, I remember, for those of you that can't, I remember 2018 in the midterms, and in an effort to stem off what was perceived as a blue wave then, there was a magical Mexican caravan that appeared about a month before the midterms and then disappeared the day after the midterms in order to try and win people over. For the record, not uniquely conservative either. Joe Biden announced that all student debt was forgiven about 5 days before the midterm, thus galvanizing the young vote. That, and of course, abortion access only for the Supreme Court to rule a week later that the student loan thing wasn't going to work out that way. The Biden administration knew that's how it was going to work, and it was just an effort to get people to show up. I'm not saying that it is a unique trick that Republicans pull. I'm saying who's the people that are telling this guy that a 44% increase in defense spending is what's going to be necessary to bring people out to the polls in November. I refuse to buy into that kind of logic, and I don't know who's telling him that that's the right strategy, because you're not going to convince me for a single second that that's the case. 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. I know I saw Larry say, I'm all for 40% less spending, or better yet, how about 100% less? We need a little bit of defense in there, but I'm with you. It seems like all these other countries figure out how to do it with a couple $100 billion, and now we're trying to go up to 1.5 trillion. What's left out of all of this, and I don't want to ramble too far on about this, but like, Iran's military is not particularly impressive. Like, not taking away anything by what our armed forces are doing here, but like, the idea that we have to invest $1 trillion and we don't get healthcare access in the name of doing what we're doing to Iran, like, I don't know. Got to wake up pretty early in the morning to slide one past me. And seems like a lot of other countries. You know what Iran has? Universal health care and cheap and affordable college. Does that make you a terrorist for saying that, or is that just the reality of the situation? 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. We're going to keep this conversation rolling. I want to stay with the same topic, but from an entirely different perspective. There's a chance that if you talk like me in the near future, that's going to be labeled as anti-American and can get you on a list that you absolutely don't want to be a part of. We will talk about what that looks like on the other side. You're listening to Outside the Box with Ben Cominos here on WHBY and Political Voices. It's another election week in Wisconsin, and I realize that some of you listen to agree with me and some of you listen to oppose me. But one thing we can all agree on is Tim Roush is the place to call for your plumbing needs. If your sump pump is making you nervous, do yourself a favor and call Tim Roush and his team, or use that free text line I've been telling you about right at the top of their website, 920-378-0920. They can help keep your basement dry and protected. Head to timroushplumbing.com for that text line. And again, more info. That's Roush Plumbing, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. All right, we're back. Outside the Box, Ben Cominos, WHBY. Heard about Nina saying some of the issues with ultra local elections is that there's usually only one candidate running for office. I don't have kids. I have no idea about the school board candidates and what they propose. Anna saying, agreed, Herb, we need more folks to not only vote, but run. Nina has decent coverage of those running. Yeah, I had Jason Zimmerman on the program on Friday. I think there's 5 races. I don't want to misspeak. I don't remember which neck of our woods. There's 5 separate races where there's literally nobody running. And then we made a joke about writing in Jason or myself. And it's like, but neither one of us lives in the area. Oh, Calumet County. It was in Calumet County. And like there's so many different hoops that you have to jump for in either to check the right boxes in order to even be a write-in candidate there. But I mean, I'm saying it till I'm blue in the face. I physically am not allowed to run. The number of you guys that have reached out to me and asked me to run for local office is A, flattering, but B, I'm not allowed to do this anymore if I do that. And I literally just started doing this. So I'm going to keep doing this for a while, but that's where all of you guys come in. If you find yourself listening to this, getting frustrated, getting fed up with a system that seems to not really care about our wants and desires, well, boy, oh boy, do I have a solution for you. Just go ahead and run for office. And again, a lot of times you're either running unopposed or you're running against someone who kind of expects to just walk into a seat, right? And if you put your nose to it, you put your nose to the grindstone, you actually get involved in this stuff, get involved in the community and get your name out there. Mamdani is not a one-off. He is not somehow uniquely rich or anything like that. There's a handful of positions out there. I was talking with a friend of mine about this kind of stuff. There's a lot of positions out there that you can go and run for where the person who wins typically just wins by default. A lot of positions in politics are mostly administrative work, right? You can learn how to do anything, and as long as your heart's in the right place, no matter how you identify politically, as long as you're actually trying to improve things, your efforts will be noticed and you will stick out. I said it last week on the show. I said it to Landon on Thursday. Show up and be prepared. That puts you ahead of 90% of people out there. If you show up on time and actually know what you are talking about, you're already better than 90% of the people who are trying to do what you're doing. That was my attitude in the sales world because so few people actually do the cold calling, show up to do what's necessary, and then if you are one of those types that do it, you very rarely have a firm grasp on what it is that you're actually selling or how to sell it to somebody. If you show up and have a vague idea of what you are pitching and you actually show up to the offices, you're going to be ahead of most people that do what you're doing. It's why I was so high above my quota, and it's why this is the best show ever made. It's the same principles that you see happen there, and you can exemplify that in politics. It's not hard, and it's not a pipe dream. A little late this time around for you to get involved with anything, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. That you can't do it going forward here. There's plenty of opportunities to do so. And I think there's a lot of people that listen to this show that have good ideas, or at the very least has their mind in the right place where they're trying to make things better for people. And I can guarantee you some friendly coverage, at least on one show. Jerry says you can tell a lot about local candidates by paying attention to lawn signs. For example, if a candidate's sign consistently appears together with Ron Johnson and Trump signs, that's all I need to know. That's fair. It's absolutely fair. And I mean, there's certain verbiage that's coded in the political world for sure. You definitely can sometimes tell, but it's more so of if you just kind of showed up on election day and are trying to figure it out. But I get Herb's consternation nevertheless here. But yeah, man, that chat just pops off. I absolutely love reading that, but it's hard for me to keep up and get what you guys are saying on the air. But don't think that I do it intentionally. It's just it's hard to keep up with you guys sometimes on the YouTube chat. But so to keep this back on the conversation about defense spending, You know, there's a whole new audience to this show that probably is like, how does this show actually work? You're getting a feel for it. Um, Back to the concept of defense spending here. We've covered this a little bit. NPSM 7. It was actually first made famous by Ken Klippenstein. He's an independent journalist who's one of the few actual journalists who's trying to do things to get stories like this into the limelight. It's described as being dedicated to proactively hunting Americans suspected of domestic terrorism. You can read much more about this in Ken Klippenstein's Substack, and I'd highly recommend, if you are not a subscriber to that you become one. It's fantastic work, highlighting a lot of what I would argue mainstream really doesn't cover. I even was watching a live stream of his where he said, I did my best to get this into the mainstream. It looks like it fell on deaf ears a lot of the times. I would like to read to you exactly what type of people are being labeled as domestic terrorists as per NPSM 7. Anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism. So if you're upset that Oracle had made $16 billion in profits in 2025 only to turn around and lay off 30% of their workforce, well, you're a domestic terrorist, according to this. Anti-Christianity, praise be to Allah. Support for the overthrow of the United States government. Extremism on migration. Extremism on race, extremism on gender. All of these label you as a terrorist, by the way, a domestic terrorist. Hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family. Hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on religion, which I'll allow you to figure out what that means in a country that does not have a specific religion. And hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on morality. All of these are listed in the new definition that we're going to see if it becomes the law of the land in the very near future here. So now let me walk you back to the last segment. We are looking at a 44% increase on defense spending. If you think that is too much or has gone too far in the name of democracy and keeping America safe while allowing all of our systems to collapse, well, I hate to break it to you, but there is no difference between you and Al Qaeda. I know. I didn't make the rules. It's just the unfortunate reality that you are facing right now. This is what our sitting president is doing. And like, I'm just going to tell you guys, I said it in the last hour. I don't know if they're going to pull it off or not, but it does seem like you could find a duck or one of these geese that tends to circle me while I do my show here at the Woodward Radio Ranch every single day. You could grab one of these outdoor creatures, put them in the White House, and you'd probably have a better sitting president than the person that we have right now, based on the way that things have been trending over the course of the last 16 months. But we also have to get to that point here. And this is the kind of thing that should be the end of a political career, proposing something like this. Again, at a time, the last time we saw a 44% increase in defense spending was during World War II, which you could argue might have had a little bit more rationale behind it than the guy that tells you something different all 5 days of the week in regards to what's going on in Iran. Maybe this guy hasn't justified a 44% increase at the same way that we did during World War II. And for the record, I'm not saying that anything short of a nuclear device being dropped on America would get me saying that a 44% increase is necessary, especially when you see how every other nation seems to have figured out how to defend their countries and also fund a healthcare program. Meanwhile, out of the same side of his mouth, Donald Trump will be like, NATO has to chip in more for defense spending. We have to chip all this money in. We're going to stop paying for your defense, so you have to pay more because we're America first now, and we have other things we need to fund. I need somebody to explain it to me. We're cutting SNAP benefits. We're cutting access to Medicaid and Medicare. We're not doing anything to address the cost of healthcare in any way. There's been nothing in terms of nationalizing healthcare, elder care, child care, or anything like that. I was told as long as we were big jerks to Mexicans and put a bunch of masks on our face and stop paying for NATO defense, that all of these America First policies were going to kick in. It seems to me like we're just funneling all of our money into defense. You know who else did that? Germany in the 30s. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Hey, Ben, I hate to call twice, but these stipulations that you read off, 30% of voters right now agree with those stipulations. So is this going to go to like a national referendum that we get to pick what we consider un-American? Because right now it's 30%. And even we can't count on our senators or our House to defend our voting rights because there's only 30%, but they're not going to buck against it. So I find it kind of hard to swallow that the minority are making the rules for the majority again.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Brian, because again, it's a matter of a definition. And for the record, were this to become law, the shoe would absolutely be on the other foot at some point. And MAGA would be calling this show, can you believe I've been labeled as X, Y, and Z because of the number of guns I have? I'll be like, yes, I can. Yes, I can believe that because you guys were okay with this time around, and I appreciate the call. But yeah, there's no one definition of what being anti or pro-American is, no matter how much MAGA wants to thump their chest about it. I'd argue I'm more American than any of you. Praise be to Allah. I told Landon I'd squeeze it in 7 times in this show. I'm not sure how many times I've said it, but I'm going to keep saying it just in a trolling capacity at the very least here, because I just can't help myself. But this is what's going on behind the scenes as we continue. And I'm not even going to do my what's the media actually covering, because it's even as a 24-hour news network, it would be very difficult to keep up with everything that's going on that this administration is doing. But wow, oh wow, does this leave a lot to be desired? And I'll be honest, because I know there's a lot of MAGA listeners to this show that were very vocal about their frustration with Donald Trump and the fact that it's gone relatively radio silent. Don't get me wrong, I get it. There's a layer of embarrassment here. This is not a liberal show, though. I'm not doing a show to embarrass people. I'm just doing a show that holds people to account. And like, you guys are going to have to do this. Liberals can whine and moan all they want. The Republican Party is not going to change their tune because liberals are complaining. The only way you get across the finish line is when they can tell that their voters won't show up. Although I say that, and it really doesn't seem like Democrats care that their attitudes towards Gaza cost them. So maybe I'm just being Pollyannish on that matter. I'll take your remaining thoughts on that. 920-281-1150. We're going to have 7-ish minutes on the other side. I'd like to talk a little bit about economic stagnation in the state of Wisconsin. If no one has any comments about NPSM 7, it's kind of the story of that story's life, is it not? It's very serious, lots to say, but realistically, what more can you say other than, wow, that's disgusting and kind of scary. I hope that doesn't come to fruition here. And I'm right there with you. We're going to talk about these economic shortcomings in the state of Wisconsin on the other side of the break and take any final comments. 920-281-1150, 920-281-1150. We'll be back. Outside the Box, Ben Cominos, WHB. Well, actually, you know what? We got one caller coming in here. We'll do that first, then break time. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
Okay, question is if we're not funding the military, what are you going to do to stop Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon? And do you feel safe knowing that a terrorist group has control of a nuclear weapon?
Do you think Russia would nuke us?
Outside their borders.
Do you think Russia would nuke us? Russia has nukes right now. Why are we not living in perpetual fear right now? All it means is we can't bomb Russia with impunity, and we don't. So to me, look at North Korea. North Korea has a nuke right now. No one's speculating about whether or not North Korea is going to drop a nuke on us, but you know what we're not doing? Bombing North Korea. To me, I don't get scared by this. And for the record, I'm not calling for no defense spending. I'm saying $1 trillion in defense spending is bleeping stupid. I think it's a stupid number to put on defense spending when we have so many things that are deteriorating all around us in this country.
Do you see Russia doing terrorist activities in the United States?
It depends on your definition of terrorism, but they're definitely influencing politics and have their hands in some of our waters for sure.
So has the Russians ever took control of a public transportation and put it into a building? in the United States?
Is that a reference to 9/11?
Sure. it
Iran
could
had
be.
nothing to do with 9/11.
The terrorist groups did. And who was funding those terrorist groups? Was it the Russians or the Koreans or the Chinese?
I'll tell you this. What happened on 9/11 was disgusting, and also an American government bombing civilian infrastructure is also disgusting. And terrorism seems to be defined a number of different ways depending on the person that is doing the activities. You'll never get me to. I understand your point and your frustration and what you're nervous about, but at the same time, $1.5 trillion in defense spending? Nah, get out of here with that.
How do we compare to the Italian Navy? Or even the
All right. So we don't have enough time to get into this. I do appreciate the call. What I can tell you is this: we spend our defense spending accounts for almost half of the world's defense spending where it stands right now. And the president is looking to add 44% to that. I do not live in constant fear of nukes and Muslims. That is an old school Republican attitude. I'm going to just go out on a limb here. You're in a bit of a minority here. I appreciate the call, though. I see a lot of you guys texting. We'll get that on the other side. Outside the Box, WHBY. What a wild way to end that last segment there. I was joking with the people on YouTube. I said, I've been talking to myself for like 2 freaking hours, and the people always end up calling with some off the wall stuff to say, like with 7 seconds left in the show, which always blows my mind. We only have about 4-ish minutes before we have to call it a program today. I see some comments up there saying they're 7,000 miles away. 9/11, those were Saudis. That's far right fear mongering, and that to me is what it ultimately boils down to. And it's not even that it's far right warmongering; it's of a certain age as well. Because if you look at anybody under 50, they are against this idea. The list goes on and on. Joe, a different Joe than the one that emails me. This is through the text line says, "We wonder who really gets the defense money, which one of Trump's buddies or maybe himself." Absolutely in the realm of possibility, but that's honestly, it's always been the case. Look at the stock buybacks within the 6 defense contractors that are out there. By the way, in 1993, there were over 50 defense contractors. We're now down to 6. Every industry is susceptible to consolidation and monopolization. Justin says NPSM7 only made me double down on my political alert stickers and shirts. I labeled them pro-democracy because that's really what anti-fascism is. If I give up on that, you gave up on even that First Amendment expression that America is broken. 1,000%, man, I'm right there with you. DSL says Bill Clinton even said allowing North Korea to continue their missile program and obtaining a nuke was his biggest regret, and he did plenty of regretful things. Well, DSL, that brings me back to the conversation about how both parties are essentially the same thing. The reason they want you nervous about other countries, because again, there's an element of thinking that these nations are filled with stupid people that don't understand the basic ramifications and repercussions. The reason they want you scared about other countries getting nukes is because if they get nukes, that means you can't take their stuff. Fundamentally, that is what it ultimately boils down to. Bill Clinton's whole job was to make Reaganism cool, and he succeeded. Obama's whole job was to make war crimes and drone strikes cool, and he succeeded. You're only watching just now as there's an effort to kind of shake on the left free from that kind of attitude. The Bushes, the Reagans, the Trumps of this era never really were concerned with that kind of thing. They just had to make sure that they could quiet down pushback from the left as much as possible, which is why the Democratic Party does not get referred to as the left by me. It gets referred to as the Democrats and Blue MAGA because there's nothing left leaning about them. So I'm not surprised at all that Bill Clinton said that. And the logic was just as stupid then as it is now. If you build one nuke, you're not going to drop it and then get wiped off the planet. You're going to keep it and say, well, it looks like you're going to have to deal with me from a business perspective because you're not going to get away with blowing up all of our hospitals, bridges, and schools anymore, like what we're doing in Iran. Remember, they are the terrorists. Praise be to Allah, everybody. Thank you for listening today. We've got another show tomorrow. Haley's up next. Download the WHBY app. All you got to do is search WHBY in Google Play or in the App Store. Available on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere you go. Absolutely loving it. We'll be back tomorrow outside the box.